In 1994, Kurt Cobain's death was officially ruled a suicide, but evidence and witness testimonies that have emerged 30 years later tell a very different story. A musician named Duce gave a shocking interview in 1994. Courtney Love offered me $50,000 to blow Kurt's head off. After Duce said he refused this offer, he made an even more startling statement: "I know who killed Kurt." Strangely, the journalist didn't ask further questions. Duce mysteriously died just days after the interview. Was this just a coincidence, or was there really a dark conspiracy behind Kurt Cobain's death? The truth revealed by the evidence will expose the biggest murder in music history. Kurt Cobain's death was officially concluded when he was found at his Seattle home on April 5, 1994. Police ruled it suicide and closed the case. But behind this quick conclusion lay many suspicious details. The official story seemed too simple, but when you examine the details, nothing makes sense, says Private Detective Tom Grant. Tom Grant had been hired by Courtney Love in 1994 to find missing Kurt, but Grant gradually became suspicious of Courtney's behavior. Courtney was more concerned about credit cards and finances than finding her husband, Grant explains. Grant's suspicions weren't just based on Courtney's attitude. The physical evidence that emerged also questioned the official story. The most shocking evidence concerned the amount of heroin in Kurt's blood. According to the autopsy report, the amount of heroin injected into Kurt's blood was 3 times the lethal dose. With this amount of heroin, a person loses consciousness. It's physically impossible to hold a shotgun and shoot himself, explains toxicologist Dr. Sarah Henderson. This information alone disproves the official suicide story, but the evidence doesn't stop there. Physical evidence related to the shotgun was also very suspicious. The shell casing was found turned completely opposite to where it should have been. It's anatomically impossible for Kurt to shoot himself in this position with his wrist angle, says ballistics expert Mike Rodriguez. Even more astonishing, no fingerprints were found on the weapon. Not even Kurt's fingerprints were there. If a person uses a weapon, they definitely leave fingerprints. No fingerprints at all shows the weapon was cleaned, explains crime scene expert Lisa Thompson. These physical evidence alone point to murder. But the darkest part of the story is what happened in the weeks before Kurt's death. A week before Kurt's death, he was staying with Courtney at a hotel in Rome. This trip is very important because it was the last significant event in Kurt's life. Hotel witnesses describe what happened that night. Courtney returned late at night from partying. Kurt was alone in the room. A big argument broke out. According to witnesses, Courtney had threatened to leave Kurt. Kurt begged her to stay. Eventually, they made up and decided to order champagne to their room, says hotel employee Marco Rossi. What happened that night was very suspicious. Kurt was hospitalized for an overdose due to Rohypnol and other substances found in the champagne. Rohypnol is a substance known as a roofie that causes unconsciousness. Why would Kurt have used such a substance? Rohypnol is usually used to render victims unconscious. It's not a preferred substance for suicide, explains toxicology expert Dr. Michael Stevens. Even more suspicious was Courtney's appearance that morning. In photos taken when Kurt was hospitalized, Courtney's makeup appears fresh and her clothes orderly. Someone who slept through the night can't be that neat. She looked like she hadn't slept at all, says photo analyst Jennifer Walsh. Doctors stated that Kurt's condition was not a suicide attempt, but the media still presented it as a suicide attempt. After the Rome incident, Kurt returned to Seattle and was admitted to a rehabilitation facility, but he escaped from the facility shortly after. Here's a very important detail: Kurt's motivation for getting clean. It was revealed that Kurt had taken serious steps toward quitting heroin use after his stomach problems were diagnosed. Kurt had initially started using heroin as a painkiller for stomach pain. When his stomach problem was resolved, he wanted to get clean, explains Dr. Jennifer Martinez. This situation could have threatened Courtney's long-term plans. A clean and uncontrollable Kurt could have created problems for Courtney. After Kurt's escape, Courtney hired private detective Tom Grant. The official reason was to find Kurt. But Courtney's priority wasn't finding her husband. It was controlling his finances, says Grant. Grant became suspicious of this attitude and began his own investigation. He searched Kurt's house with Kurt's closest friend, Dylan Carlson. We searched the house twice, but Dylan didn't show me the greenhouse above the house, Grant explains. Dylan's behavior was very suspicious because Kurt's body was eventually found in that greenhouse. Even more suspicious was the constant phone conversations between Dylan and Courtney while Grant was away. It was like they were planning something. Dylan and Courtney were having private meetings, says Grant. Grant's suspicions aren't limited to Dylan. There was another suspicious person living in Kurt's house. Cali DeWitt was Courtney's ex-boyfriend and was living in their house despite Kurt's objections. He was helping take care of Frances. Cali was at the house the day Kurt supposedly committed suicide, but he claimed he didn't hear the gunshot. It's very strange for someone in the house not to hear a gunshot. Especially suspicious that Cali was there at the time, says audio expert Robert Kim. Cali's presence may not be just coincidence, but part of deliberate planning. Among all these suspicious details, the most dramatic witness testimony came from El Duce. El Duce, whose real name was Eldon Wayne Hoke, was the vocalist of the Mentors band. He gave an interview for the Kurt and Courtney documentary in 1994. El Duce made a shocking allegation in the interview. Courtney Love offered me $50,000 to blow Kurt's head off. After El Duce said he refused this offer, he made an even more surprising statement. I know who killed Kurt. The journalist tried to get more information, but El Duce said, buy me a beer and I'll talk some more. What was strange was the journalist's almost complete lack of response and refusal to buy El Duce a beer. Wouldn't you want to learn more from someone who had that information, says documentary director Nick Broomfield. El Duce's story doesn't end there. El Duce was mysteriously killed just days after the interview. The official cause was stated as a train accident, but the timing was very suspicious. Someone who reveals such critical information dying immediately after can't just be coincidence, says crime analyst Patricia Moore. El Duce's death is just one of the mysterious deaths surrounding the Kurt Cobain case. Several journalists investigating Kurt's death also died suspiciously or received threats. These deaths show a pattern and point to efforts to cover up the murder. Courtney's motivation is also very clear. She gained significant financial benefit from Kurt's death. Kurt's music rights, properties, and future earnings came under Courtney's control. If Kurt had lived, he could have made much more music. Courtney didn't want to lose these potential earnings, says music industry analyst David Richards. Courtney's financial situation improved significantly after Kurt's death. This is too big a benefit to be coincidence. When all the evidence is evaluated together, it's very clear that Kurt didn't commit suicide. Physical evidence supports the murder scenario. Heroin dosage, weapon position, absence of fingerprints make suicide impossible. Witness testimonies and timeline point to Courtney's role. El Duce's confessions are the strongest evidence. Courtney's behavior also raises suspicion. Her focus on finances, problems with Grant, suspicious meetings. Tom Grant has continued investigating this case for 30 years. All evidence shows Kurt was murdered. Police should reopen the case, says Grant. Grant's efforts have paid off, and the case has come back into the spotlight in recent years. Old evidence is being reanalyzed with new technologies. DNA tests, ballistic analyses, audio recordings are being examined. We can better understand evidence from 30 years ago with modern techniques, explains forensic expert Dr. Rebecca Martinez. Frances Bean Cobain is also asking questions about her father. Frances, now an adult, has the right to know the truth. Frances deserves to know what really happened to her father, says family law expert Amanda Foster. Seattle police have so far refused to reopen the case, but this may change as a result of increasing pressure. The public has become more aware of Kurt's case. Justice campaigns have been launched on social media. Kurt's fans deserve to know the truth, says fan group leader Mark Stevens. The music world is also not staying silent on this issue. Many musicians are demanding justice for Kurt. If we have respect for Kurt's memory, we must learn the truth, says musician activist Kim Thiel. Courtney Love continues to deny all allegations. She makes no detailed explanations. Courtney's silence also raises suspicion. An innocent person wouldn't stay silent against so much evidence, says public relations expert Jennifer Davis. Courtney's lawyers always use the same arguments. These are conspiracy theories, they say, but they provide no explanation for concrete evidence. Heroin dosage, weapon position, absence of fingerprints, these aren't conspiracy theories, they're physical reality, says forensic expert Dr. Roberts. Seattle police's attitude also raises suspicion. The reasons for their haste in closing the case are not fully understood. Such quick closure isn't seen in normal murder cases. Much more detailed investigation is conducted, says retired police officer Captain Williams. The evidence collection process at Kurt's death scene is also criticized. Many critical pieces of evidence may have been overlooked. Crime scene preservation was inadequate. Important evidence may have been lost, explains crime scene expert Dr. Sandra Lopez. The behavior of people in the family's close circle is also questioned. Kurt's mother, Wendy O'Connor, had even expressed her doubts at times. As a mother, she felt her son didn't commit suicide, says family friend Patricia Smith. Kurt's sister, Kim Cobain, has also indicated in some interviews that she questions the official story. There were doubts about this even within the family. Not everyone believed the suicide story, says Kim's close friend Lisa Johnson. Other musicians in the grunge music scene had also expressed concerns about Kurt's situation. They particularly noted that Kurt had motivation for recovery in his final period. Kurt was very positive in his final period. He loved being a father and was making future plans, says Soundgarden member Ben Shepherd. Kurt's final period songs also didn't show suicidal intent. On the contrary, they contained future-focused and hopeful messages. Kurt at the MTV Unplugged performance was very different. He seemed peaceful and sincere, says music critic Robert Christgau. This performance was only a few months before Kurt's death, and it would be very difficult for someone with suicidal thoughts to give such a performance. Nirvana's future projects were also being planned. Kurt was writing songs for a new album. Someone with suicidal thoughts doesn't make so many plans for the future, says music producer Steve Albini. Even 30 years later, questions surrounding Kurt Cobain's death remain unanswered. Evidence points to murder, but the justice system has yet to act. Kurt's case could be the biggest unsolved murder of the 20th century, says crime historian Professor John Williams. In the social media age, this case has been revived. New generation fans are examining evidence and demanding justice. Thanks to the internet, evidence is reaching wider audiences. Truth can't be hidden, says digital activist Sarah Connor. New documentaries and research constantly reveal new angles. The film Soaked in Bleach particularly shows Tom Grant's investigations in detail. This documentary presents evidence very objectively, says film critic Roger Mitchell. International media has also begun showing interest in this case. Major outlets like BBC and Rolling Stone are conducting research on the topic. Kurt's case is not just America's problem, but the world's, says British journalist Amanda Clark. More pressure and investigation are needed for the truth to emerge. Kurt Cobain wasn't just a musician, he was the voice of a generation. His unjust death is the biggest loss in music history. Future generations will continue to follow this case. The truth will emerge sooner or later. Kurt's legacy should be not just his music, but also his fight against injustice, says young activist Maria Gonzalez. What the evidence shows is clear. Kurt Cobain didn't commit suicide. He was murdered. Courtney Love's role becomes clearer with each passing day. El Duce's words, physical evidence, witness testimonies, financial motivation, all point in the same direction. If we have respect for Kurt's memory and truth, we must continue to follow this case. Justice will prevail sooner or later. Kurt Cobain's killer will eventually be revealed.